Well, I will be conducting this FM303 exam online tutorial. Are you in a position to hear me wherever you are? Can you give me a notification that you can hear me loud and clear? Hi, Carla. Hi, Lorraine. Maria. Caption. Oh, great stuff. Oh, great stuff, guys. I'm glad that you're actually hearing me loud and clear from wherever you are. Now, just before I get into our online tutorial, feel free to ask any question whenever there is one. Just quickly type in so that we'll be in a position to help you out as we move. So that said, let's get to it. Just a quick few pointers as I prepare you guys for the exam, and also what one needs to do as you prepare yourselves for the exam. The first point is said, you should ensure that you have covered all the learning outcomes as per your learner guide. Of course, that is so important. I often say in Financial Management 3, as much as this is not the time personally that one would actually go directly and look at the tutorial later. For now, especially in this coming week, maybe up until Monday after the holiday, try to go through everything that is in the learner guide to give you a more holistic understanding of the module itself, and then thereafter you then stick to your tutorial later. But for now, the coming 10 days or so, I would suggest stick to all the outcomes that are in your learner guide. So that's one. Two, use practical questions from past examination papers. So important. On your e-learn, you have 3 past examination papers together with their guidelines. So what I suggest you do is you take up a specific, let's say you have covered a specific learning unit 1, go print out or view the 3 past papers that are there, attempt to respond to questions that are falling in unit 1. After you've attempted, and then go see the responses from the guidelines. Pay attention to the wording of the questions, and also on the guideline, the examiner often highlights important words that are required as you respond to some of these questions. So it is important to keep yourself abreast to the terminology that we use in financial management. So that is the issue of past examination papers from the e-learn. Revision study groups, so important, especially those that are attending lectures, even those that are not. Get to know your colleagues, people who are doing the same modules you're doing. Meet up, have engagements. Apart from us helping you out on interpretation of questions and also how to respond, your colleagues could actually help you out to do so as well. Revise your assignment. You can imagine how one would feel if you never went through the assignment. Remember that the guidelines for the assignments have been posted already on the e-learn. It's so important just for one to go through, especially theory stuff, your question 1 and so forth. Go through question 1 that we had in the assignment, and also see the responses that the examiner gave for the assignment on the guidelines. It will be a pity if you see a specific question in there and then for some reason you never went through the assignment. After the assignment, then your colleagues are telling you that there were specific questions there. Okay, and then use of financial calculator. It should be common knowledge that somebody who is doing FM3 now, they've already done FM2. You know we use the financial calculator, especially when it comes to terminal value calculations on question number 5, this module. And then one also needs to pay attention to the tutorial later. So you do all those, and then you pay attention to the tutorial later. You should be able to prepare yourself very well for the forthcoming exam. So those are my 6 few pointers that I wanted to mention to you guys so as to help you out as you prepare for your exam now. Now, remember, the first online tutorial we did, it was covering Learn Unit 1, 2, and 3. That was specifically for the assignment. I'll just mention important outcomes right at the end. So I need to concentrate on Learning Unit 4 and Learning Unit 5, which we haven't even discussed since. So Learning Unit 4, your tutorial letter stipulated that it will be having 40 marks. It goes without saying it is so important for one to go through the very learning unit, use examples. I think there should be 3 or 4 examples in the learner guide, and also 3-4 questions right at the end of the topic, where one would actually be able to attempt to respond to such questions, and also to respond. You've got solutions in the learner guide as well. So conducting a product profitability analysis using the direct product profitability. So what I've just decided to do, to give you 4 important elements or outcomes on each of these topics, Unit 4 and Unit 5. And I also have got few calculations that we're going to do so as to clear a lot of questions that one might have pertaining these 2 learning units. So you need to be in a position to conduct a product profitability analysis. You should be also in a position to conduct a customer profitability analysis. The difference of those 2, the direct product profitability and your customer profitability analysis, is just that on a product, the question that they would give you, it will be a specific company that is selling a physical product. Whereas on a customer profitability analysis, it will then be a service. But the interpretation and the calculation are almost exactly the same, but I'll then stipulate what interpretation would you use when you are looking at direct product profitability, and also what can one use when you're looking at customer profitability analysis. On your direct product profitability, you have got 2 important things. All you are doing there, you need to calculate your net profit, of which you need to follow a structure, whichever structure that they will give you or they will suggest. In short, whatever structure they are suggesting, they're just being polite. They should be instructing you that should be the format that one's supposed to use. You're just going to say sales, subtract your variable cost, which are your cost of sales, gives you a gross profit, which we can call contribution, minus your indirect cost should give you your net profit. So the most important item or element pertaining this calculation of net profit, it is your indirect cost, where one needs to use what you call the activity-based costing concept to allocate indirect cost. And these indirect costs, they are difficult for one to trace down or to pinpoint to exactly how and to what extent did we consume such a specific cost when one was manufacturing a product or a service. They said they could have given you a number of products or services there. So when you have conducted your direct product profitability analysis, which I'm going to have got a equation, which you're going to go through together, you then use the BCG metrics to evaluate the portfolio that a company will be having. And by portfolio, I'm referring to the products, the product A, B, C, or D, or product 1, 2, 3, and 4. It all depends on the equation. So you use your BCG metrics. The BCG metrics, I'm so sure you guys are marketers. You know the BCG way better off than me. But of importance now when you bring it to finance, it is the strategies that one would employ on a star. One would employ on a cash cow, on a question mark, or also on a dog. So in the learner guide, there's direct stipulation of the strategies. Examples of such, we'll be looking at hold strategy, harvest strategy. By harvest, it means you would continue selling that specific product and you'll be making as much money as one can. That's harvesting. Divest strategy, it means you then sell off or discontinue a specific product. And then build, it goes without saying, one needs to add financial resources so as to promote or to invest in such a product. So I've mentioned build, harvest, and also divest as well. So those could be typical strategies that one would employ when you're looking at interpretation of the BCG. The customer profitability analysis, like I've said, the preparation is basically the same. The only difference of customer profitability analysis to direct profitability analysis, direct product profitability, it is that on customer you're looking at services, whereas on the product you'll be looking at activities. One is taking in manufacturing a specific what? A specific product. So in your customer profitability analysis, you then use the 4-box model to interpret your portfolio, which will be your services portfolio. So you would use the 4-box model. It's also stipulated in your learner guide, and they explained it so well, so I advise you guys to also go through that. So that is basically the main important elements or outcomes on learning unit 4. So I got a question of May 2017. The reason I chose this one, there's a specific statement that I saw there I felt I should explain as opposed to other past examination papers. Not to say I've seen the exam, of course, but there was just a tricky line on it that I thought I should do. The interpretation, or rather the calculation of direct product profitability analysis or your customer profitability analysis is basically the same. So it doesn't matter did I pick 2017, 16, May or June. Get the concept right and then interpret this circumstance that you'll be given in the exam. You should be good to go. So I've got part C. I actually want to go to how one would actually calculate direct product profitability or customer profitability using examination that was written last semester, May 2017. So I would ask you guys to get to that paper if you have. If not, you can actually see on the screen. Just that I'll be moving my slides from one to another. Sometimes going back, it might distract you. So I'll give you just a moment to look for your May 2017 question 4 part C paper, and I'll be reading shortly. And then we're going to go through this calculation together. If you've got a question, ask me, and then I'll be glad to help. So I'm quickly going to read question 4.4 on part C of May 2017. It says Greengrass, a Pretoria-based gardening equipment producer, manufactures 4 products: a lawnmower, a garden vacuum cleaner, a high-pressure washer, and a lawn edge trimmer. So these are the 4 products that this company called Greengrass, based in Cape Town, is producing. The price and cost information for each of these products are given as follows. So they gave you the details under the product, and in bracket it says per unit. So important to take note of that. It went on to give you 4 columns plus the total. The lawnmower, the vacuum cleaner, the power washer together with the edge trimmer. Let me just pick one here. Let me pick the first column just for me to explain what's going on there. They have given you the selling price of 4,400 under the lawnmower. In short, the 4,400 is the selling price per lawnmower. And where am I getting that interpretation from? It is right there on product. It says product and then it's stipulated per unit. So the selling price per 1 unit of a lawnmower is 4,400. Direct labor, they are 1,200. Direct materials, they are 2,000. And the 1.2 and the 2,000, that is per lawnmower. And then thereafter, they went on to tell you the number of products sold. So the interpretation is, this company called Greengrass, they sold 20,000 lawnmowers. And we know the selling price per lawnmower together with the direct labor and direct materials. Your manufacturing hours, they are 120,000. Of course, which is the number of hours spent in manufacturing or producing the lawnmower. The factory floor space is also given in square meters, which is 1,500. And your number of employees are 1,800. That said, they went on even to give you the total. Under the last column, they gave you total. So just a quick one, if you're in the exam, quickly find out if this indirect cost, manufacturing hours, factory floor space, together with the number of employees, if the total of the 4 columns, is it giving you the very total that is given right there? So let's check that by doing the number of employees instead. If you say 1.8 employees were involved in the manufacturing of lawnmower plus the 1.2 of vacuum cleaner plus 1,000 of power washer together with the other 1,000 for edge trimmer, that's giving me 5,000. The reason I'm mentioning that is you can see a situation when the company, they could be producing a lot of products, just that they've picked 3 that they want you to analyze. You always use the very last total to help you out to get what you call the cost driver rates. So it's so important just to quickly check. Let's say when I was working 1.2, adding 1.8, 1.2, 1,000 and 1,000, it didn't give me 5,000, or rather gave me 5, but the total given there is 10,000. When it comes to cost driver allocation, which you're going to be doing together, you end up using the total incurred by the company, not only of the product that you are supposed to be analyzing. That said, we move on to total indirect costs are as follows. So they gave you electricity being 990,000, water usage 340, factory rental which is 2.4, and head office and administration which were 20 million. So these are costs that the company in total has incurred. But if you then look at manufacturing hours, factory floor space and number of employees, they were just giving us like a factory floor space. They were giving you the space that is occupied by the manufacturing department that is looking at lawnmower, which is 1,500 square meters. I'll then move on. The question then went on and say, additional information. Water is only being used by employees for bathroom and kitchen usage. Factory machine uses no water. So we are having, that's the statement that made me to pick this question. You are having water only being used by employees for bathroom and kitchen usage. So factory machine is not, they are not using any water. You'll see once we get to the cost driver calculations. The question went on to say head office and administration charges are allocated equally between the 4 products. So they were going to allocate the 20 million head office cost equally across the four products. Required. Question 4.4.1 says, list the activity drivers to be used for cost allocation of electricity, water usage, factory rental, head office, and admin charges across the 4 products. So the part that one is to get right is, if you get the factors that are going to affect your activity drivers, it's going to be very, very difficult, because from then on, you will be allocating using a wrong cost driver factor, and then whatever calculation you're going to do on question 4.4.2 then becomes wrong. So I'm going to quickly flip back. So we want to find out what are the activity drivers. An activity driver is this specific activity a company will be performing as they produce the product, which it goes without saying, the number of hours, let's say the number of hours I'm spending with you guys on this online tutorial is being paid per hour. It goes without saying the cost of conducting this online will be the number of hours I'll then spend with you online. So the number of hours in this regard will actually then determine the direct cost involved in offering this intervention as we prepare you guys for the exam. So that's what we refer to as activity drivers. So they want you to find out what are you going to use to allocate your cost towards electricity, water usage, factory rental, and head office. and admin charges. So if I flip back here on the question, we have on my first table, I have got my number of products that are sold, manufacturing hours, factory floor space in square meters, number of employees. It goes without saying, when I'm looking at electricity, surely your manufacturing hours are the ones that are going to determine how much kilowatts one is going to be using towards production. So one would then say, electricity, we are going to, our activity driver for electricity is going to be your machining, your manufacturing hours. So on electricity, we are going to say manufacturing hours. Factory floor space, water usage. On your water usage, you then need to interpret this statement that I read that says water is only used by employees for bathroom and kitchen usage. Factory and machinery uses no water. So it goes without saying the cost of the water usage, we are going to use the number of employees to allocate the cost that we have incurred to these specific products. So that is the trick that I wanted to give there, to say never were you going to use anything other than the number of employees, because there's an indication on the question that says water is only being used by employees for both bathroom and kitchen usage. Factory machinery uses no water. So water usage, we're going to be using the number of employees. Factory rental, if you look at the activities that we have, is going to be your factory floor space in square meters. The more space one occupies, surely the more one should pay towards rent. On average, I know there are a lot of factors that can also affect that as well. Then, the head office and administration. There is a statement that stipulated head office and administration charges are allocated equally between the four products. So the issue is, how are you going to know what is going to be the activity driver? From that very statement, you're just going to say, I'm going to do equal allocation, because of the statement that says head office and administration charges are allocated equally between the four products. So what activity driver are you going to use for head office and admin cost allocation? You're then going to do it equally. And in this regard, equally, it goes without saying I was going to divide this by 4. So important for one to use the correct activity drivers when you're calculating this question 4, and it has got a lot of marks in the exam. I'll then now move on to question 4.4.2. So we said, just for us to be able to move on, electricity, we are using manufacturing hours. Water usage is going to be number of employees. Factory rental is going to be the floor space occupied by each product. Head office and administration charges, we are going to allocate cost equally among those four departments or products. I'll then move on to question 4.4.2. It said, perform a product profitability analysis for green grass. Use the template provided on the next page. So I want to get to that next page, and then we'll be able to do this preparation. So the question went on and say, include the calculation of the net margin for each product and for the organization as a whole. So after we've done this calculation, in actual fact, if you look at the format that is given there, right at the end, the last line, you're going to be having your net margin. So we're going to do a net margin calculation. Round off all calculations to the nearest rand. So important also to pay attention to such instructions. Round off percentage calculations to 2 decimal places. I'll read that instruction again. Round off all calculations to the nearest rand, and also round off percentage calculations to 2 decimal places. Let's say they didn't give you this instruction, you always round figures to 2 decimal places in financial management. So when it comes to rand amounts, we're going to round to the nearest rand. No decimals, no cents. But percentages, we're going to round them to 2 decimal places. So that being said, they want you to follow through that structure that they gave you for 13 marks. 13 or 14, yeah, for 19 in actual fact, for 19 months. So let's get to that. So we need to do the sales revenue. Sales revenue for lawnmower. So I've got my calculator next to me. I will be flipping back to the slide where I've got the equation. So we need to bring sales revenue for lawnmower together with vacuum cleaner, power washer together with edge trimmer alone. So let me pick my sales revenue for lawnmower. I know that our selling price is 4,400 per unit. They gave us the number of products that we end up selling. So for lawnmower, we end up selling 20,000 lawnmowers. So I would say 4,400 times the 20,000 lawnmowers we sold to be able to give me, pay attention to those zeros, that is 88 million. So I will come to my suggested formula. I will put 88 million on the lawnmower for sales. I'll then move on to the vacuum cleaner. On your vacuum cleaner, our selling price per vacuum cleaner is 1,100. Multiplied by the number of vacuum cleaners we sold, which are 8,000. It's going to give you 8.8 million will be our sales revenue for product vacuum cleaner. Is there someone with a question pertaining how one would also conduct that sales revenue moving to power washer and edge trimmer? Because you're going to follow exactly the very same suit like what I've just done on lawnmower and also on the vacuum cleaner. So I want to move down with those two, lawnmower and your vacuum cleaner. You will do exactly the same for power washer. Get the concept and then you'll be able to apply that for the other two columns because of time limitations. So that's how you calculate your sales revenue. I'll then move on to direct cost. If you look at the structure that they gave you, they just went on and said direct cost. They didn't separate direct labor standing on its own and also direct material standing on their own. So it goes without saying those two are direct. And how do you pick up direct cost? Direct cost would have already been given in rand amounts or in rand terms. So I'll add for lawnmower, I'm going to add both the direct labor and direct materials. For lawnmower, that will give me my direct cost. So I'll say 1,200 plus 2,000 rands to give me 3,200 rands being the direct cost which we incurred in producing lawnmower. I'll then move on to the question. So the question says, calculate the direct cost for these respective products. So when I'm doing lawnmower, I've added direct labor plus my direct material gave me 3,200. I'll then say, how many products did we sell? 3.2 per product multiplied by the 20,000 products in this regard lawnmowers we sold. It's going to give you, let me see how many zeros here. 64 million. It's going to give you 64 million as your direct cost. So my direct cost for lawnmower, 64 million. Remember, we had our sales for lawnmower being 88 million. Now I've got my direct cost for lawnmower being 64 million. Let me also do the same for vacuum cleaner so as to drive this point home. I'll go to my direct cost for vacuum cleaner. We were incurring 200 rands towards direct labor and also another 200 rands towards direct material. So my direct cost per vacuum cleaner we produced are 400 rands. And then how many vacuum cleaners did we produce? They're 8,000. So I'll say 400 rands multiplied by 8,000 to give me 3.2 million. So now I've got my direct cost for lawnmower and also my direct cost for vacuum cleaner. You continue doing that along that line for power washer, edge trimmer, and edge totals across. So we've handled the first two. It goes without saying, had somebody made a mistake and forgot that the 1,200 and the 2,000 under lawnmower, it is per product. Surely, if you have made a sales revenue of 88 million under lawnmower, and then you only added 1,200 plus 2,000 rands to get yourself 3,200. What type of business would you incur a cost of production of only 3,200 and you're going to make yourself 88 million? Maybe drugs, I wouldn't know, but I think that profit margin is way too high. So those are some of the things that, let's say, because of concentration, you just lapse concentration for a while. But some of these things, they also need to make sense. I can't be making a sales revenue of 88 million whilst I'm only incurring cost of 3,200. It can't be. So that would eventually be raise your eyebrows to say maybe there's something that I would have done wrong. I'll then move on to the next item, which is your electricity charges, or rather gross profit. So for the first two products that we have 88 million for sales revenue for lawnmower, and then 64 million on the direct cost. So 88 million subtract 64 million will give you your gross profit being 24 million. In an exam situation, the examiner might even choose to say, on your sales revenue, give you the sales exactly as given, and then say direct cost. Then the formula would then say sales revenue subtracted direct cost. Instead of you seeing gross profit there, the examiner might choose to say contribution margin. We'll still be referring to the same thing, contribution margin. And if I remember well in your assignment, that's exactly the wording that we had. It was average fee, subtract your variable cost to give you your contribution margin. So you're not supposed to be surprised by that wording. It's basically exactly the same. You're also going to do exactly the same for your vacuum cleaner. Our sales revenue for vacuum cleaner, that were 8.8 million minus the 3.2 million that we incurred towards total direct cost. You're going to get yourself your gross profit being 5.6 million for vacuum cleaner as well. And then we move on to electricity charges. The examiner decided to also indicate in brackets to say allocated, water charges allocated, factory rental in brackets allocated, and also head office and admin charges allocated. Now, what I've then paid, these four are basically your indirect cost, which you need to use the activity-based costing method to allocate those costs. So let's do electricity charges. Now, since the examiner didn't choose to give you a formula where you're going to calculate your cost driver rate, we are not supposed to be rounding figures. You're going to have the figures exactly as they are. It is something that I'm actually going to mention to my evening classes, that if ever the examiner chooses not to give you a format to say calculate your cost driver rate, just don't round figures, use exactly what you have on your calculator, isn't it? So I will do electricity charges first. So electricity charges, we know, I'll flip back to the equation. We incurred a total of 990,000 rands. And remember, we said we are going to allocate electricity charges cost to these products using manufacturing hours. I will then go and divide 990,000 divided by the total manufacturing hours the company incurred, which are the 352 under the total column. So I'll say 990 divided by 352,000. This type of a calculation, I would prefer you use a scientific calculator, because your financial calculator will round figures to 2 decimal places. I wouldn't know if the examiner would actually want the exact figures, but I'm sure you'll be able also to pick what's going on. But such a calculation is not a financial one, rather use a scientific calculator. I'm getting 2.8125. I can actually write that down so that I don't have to quickly always go back to that calculation. So I know it's 2.8125. What is that in short? It's 2.8125 rands that we are incurring towards 1 manufacturing hour. We said electricity 990,000 rands. And how many hours did we incur? total in the company, the 352. So I say 990 divided by 352, it will give you 2.8125. I suggest you write that down. So that will be per kilowatt. I'll write that down, or per hour, for manufacturing hour. I'll write that down so that I don't have to continuously do this calculation. So I've got my 2.8125 down. Let me also move on to the other water usage, factory rental and head office. I'll write per unit so that when you do the calculation it becomes easier making a reference to those. I'll then also go on to water usage. Remember, on water usage you say they're going to use the number of employees. So I would say, how much did it cost us towards water? 340,000 rands. How many number of employees did we have in the company? 5,000. So I'll say 340,000 rands divided by 5,000 to give me 68 rands. So my 68 rands, this is 68 rand that each employee has used towards water. So I've got my 68 rand. I'll also move on to factory rental. We incurred a total of 2.4 million in rands, divided by how much space are we occupying towards this for? It is 4,000 square meters. So 2.4 million divided by 4,000 square meters to give me 600 rands. So I'll also write that down because the examiner in this regard didn't give you a format. So I'll write these down. In short, these are what you call cost driver rates. So I'll write those down, and then finally I'll move on to head office and administration. On your head office and administration, it is 20 million. That's where we're going to share this cost equally. So 20 million divided by 4 is going to give you 5 million per product. I've got my 5 million. So I've got my cost driver rates on the side. Then I'll go back to my question so that we'll be in a position to quickly respond. Like we've been doing, we're moving with 2 lines, lawnmower and vacuum cleaner. You can always then follow suit on power washer, edge trimmer, then get your total horizontally. So when I then go on to electricity charges, I'll then go and say, I know that it's costing us 2.8125 rands per kilowatt towards electricity to per machine hour, I meant to say manufacturing hour. So I'll go and find out how many manufacturing hours did we use in producing products. Lawnmower, it's 120,000. So I'll say 120,000 manufacturing hours multiplied by 2.8125, which we have wrote on the side. It will give you 337,500. And remember, these are costs. I'll put them in brackets. 337,500. I'll also move on the same electricity cost to vacuum cleaner. I would say, I know how many manufacturing hours did we incur in producing the vacuum cleaner, 64,000. Multiplied by the cost per manufacturing hour, it was 2.8125 to then give you the 180,000. You do the same for power washer and also edge trimmer. Remember, you would have wrote these cost driver rates on the side. So that is how one would actually conduct the ABC concept, the activity-based cost allocation of indirect cost. I'll then move on to water charges, also for lawnmower and vacuum cleaner. The water charges, we said we are going to use the number of employees. So I'll go and say, what is the total cost we incurred towards water charges? It was 340, or remember we've already done the cost driver rate. So I know it was costing us 68 rands per employee. So how many employees do we have involved in the lawnmower production? There are 1.8. So I'll say 1,800 employees, each incurring 68 rands. I should be able to get myself 124,400 towards my water charges for lawnmower. I would do exactly the same for vacuum cleaner. I would say how many employees? 1.2 employees multiplied by the 68 rand per employee, which will give me 81,600. And these are costs, of course, they're in brackets. So we've done the first two. I'll then also move on to factory rental. On your factory rental for your lawnmower, we know the cost per square meter. It is 600 rand per square meter. So I'll go to lawnmower and say, lawnmower production, how much is it occupying towards factory floor space? It's 1,500 square meters. And I know a square meter rental is 600 rand. I'll multiply by 600 rand. It will give me 900,000 for the lawnmower. I'll then also do exactly the same for the vacuum cleaner. How many square meters are being occupied? 900. What is the cost per square meter? 600. To give you 540,000. So we've done our factory rental. And then I'll move on to head office and admin cost. My head office and admin cost, they've said you're going to allocate them what? Equally. So you're just going to say the 20 million that we have divided by 4, it gave me 5 million. I'll put the 5 million across for lawnmower, vacuum cleaner, power washer together with edge trimmer. And of course, my total in that line, it will be the 20 million. So let's do the calculation for the net profit for the lawnmower. Remember, I'm now starting from the gross profit, subtracting my indirect cost. So our gross profit was 24 million for lawnmower. Subtract the 337,500 which we incurred towards electricity. 337,500 towards electricity. Minus the water charges, which we say they're going to be 122,400, minus the factory rental, which was 900,000, minus my head office, we said 5 million. We're dividing these equally. Pay attention to your zeros. You should be able to get yourself your net profit being 17,640,100 rand. 17,640,100 rand. So that's basically how one would have calculated the net profit for lawnmower. Let's go through the very same activity on vacuum cleaner. We made 5.6 million on gross profit from vacuum cleaner. And then I'll go and subtract those. The electricity charges, we said they were 180,000. Minus our water charges, we said they were 81,600. Minus your factory rental, we said they were 540,000. Minus the head office and admin, which we allocated equally, which was 5 million. You will be making a loss. I've got a negative there. I've got a loss of 201,600. So I will put the loss in brackets. You will do exactly the same for power washer, edge trimmer, together with your total column. And then I'll move on to my net profit margin. Your net profit margin, it is calculated. This one, there was no direct mention in the learner guide pertaining net profit margin, but it's a calculation which you would conduct by saying your net profit over your sales revenue. Margin, we are referring to profits. Sorry, we are referring to sales revenue. So what I'll then do is I would say how much profit did we make on the lawnmower. We made the 17,640,100 divided by my sales revenue was 88 million times 100, so that I expressed it as a percent. It was going to give you 20.04556818. Remember, there was an instruction to say round off all calculations to the nearest rand, round off percentages to the nearest 2 decimal places. So it will be 20.05%. 20.05%. I'll do exactly the same for the vacuum cleaner. As much as it made a loss, it goes without saying this won't be a net margin anymore, it will be a net loss, isn't it? I'll then say how much loss did we make? It was 201,600, and it's a negative, divided by our sales revenue of 8.8 million times 100. It was going to give you a negative 2.29% is your net margin. In actual fact, is your net loss. You're going to do exactly the same for your power washer, edge trimmer, and also the total. This is exactly what this question wanted one to do. In your exam now, all that they will change is the circumstance. Pay attention to why we end up using number of employees to allocate water charges, because there's an indication in the equation. And also we end up allocating head office and administration cost equally, because the question stipulated so. So it doesn't matter what they'll bring you, if it's a customer or if it's a product, the application of the ABC concept still remains the same. You cannot afford to make a mistake on picking up your activity drivers. So that's how one would calculate your net profit or conduct your direct product profitability for this. I'll then finish off with these two questions on this topic. 4.43 says, on the basis of the calculated net margin, advise Greengrass as to which product they should discontinue and which products they should focus their future marketing campaigns. Provide brief reasons for your advice. So it goes without saying, the one we made a loss on, which was the vacuum cleaner, we need to discontinue this product because it is making us losses. Had I done this interpretation using BCG metrics, that would have been a dog, isn't it? It's making you losses, and what is the strategy? Divest, which is basically discontinue. So I might want to spice the solution up by bringing the BCG there. You then go and compare the profits that you have made, especially in line with your net margin. For your lawnmower, remember we made 17,640,100, and our net margin was 20%. So what I can then do is I can also look at the profits one made on power washer and also on the edge trimmer. The one that was going to give you the highest in this regard was your power washer. It was your power washer. So remember, the three were going to be profitable to you. So you end up now with your own reasoning. Should I have them under stars or should I have them under my cash cow? But the one that I'm not incurring a lot of cost whilst still making a huge amount of profits, that will basically become your cash cow, and then the others could be your stars. So you're going to be playing around a cash cow, stars, and then that one of vacuum cleaner was going to be your dog because of the losses that it's making. Hence, we're going to divest, which was our strategy there. Question 4.4 says, in your opinion, which one of the cost allocation bases should be changed and to what basis? If you then look at all the ones that we have there, electricity charges, there's no need for me to change it because the more hours I'm spending towards manufacturing, the more electricity I would incur. Water charges, they stipulated that it is only employees that are using the water in the kitchen, and it was also in water charges. It was in the bathroom and also in the kitchen. And then if you move on to your factory rental, of course, the space that one is occupying would actually help one to allocate cost towards rental. But the one that one needed to change was the head office and administration charges. Remember, our allocation was to divide these equally, to give 5 million each to each product. And then you needed to change that to your sales revenue. Why would I say so? We would assume in an institution in practice, the product or the specific area that is making the most profit should be using a lot of head office and administration support activities to such a product. So hence, you needed to change the allocation of head office and administration charges to be moved from equally, then to move on to the sales revenue that one was generating. Have I seen your exam? No. But I'm thinking, if you have looked at the past 3 question papers, this use of number of employees going to be used when it comes to water charges allocation. It has been a question that they used in May. I wouldn't know if they're going to bring it again, but I saw it was tricky. And then once you get your activity cost drivers wrong, this calculation of 19 marks will also be wrong. So at your own time, I would want you and I would advise you to go through this question one more time and finish off the other columns. We have just done 2 columns of the 5 that were given. Is there someone, guys, with a specific question on how I conducted this calculation, specifically on allocation using activity-based costing? How we allocated our indirect cost to these products? Any questions on that before or then move on to learning unit 5? Any questions on that? The question we just responded to before we would then be in a position to move on to question 5. Great stuff, Carla. There is no question from Carla. And will I be right to think, okay, I can see people are responding. People, this question has got 40 marks. Conducted calmly, but of course, maintaining enough speed, exactly like what I've just done. You get the 40 marks, you're good to go, and then you're going to go and get some of the marks in other topics. Then that will be that. I hope so myself, but of importance, what I want you to get is the concept remains the same. It doesn't matter what they're going to give you, the concept remains the same. Just go through the application just like what we've just done now. Okay, great stuff. I'll then move on to learning unit 5. You're welcome, guys. Great. I'll then be in a position to move on to learning unit 5. Learning unit 5 said, these are the main outcomes of learning unit 5. You should be in a position to describe the meaning of cost versus benefit analysis. How should one show the calculations? Okay, myself, the calculation, right at the, remember they would have given you a format. You're going to put your solution on the format. Underneath the format, you might choose to actually show your working there. Rather, let me not use the term choose. Show your working there in case you make a slight mistake. If the examiner is lenient, could be in a position to track down how you did your calculation, and who knows, you could be sitting at 49, you might end up getting additional marks from your calculation. So just underneath where your solution is, you can show your working there, especially these cost driver rates that we're doing. Great stuff. Then I'll move on to product and customer profitability. These are the 3 main objectives that I picked out of this unit. It is, you should be in a position to know what is it that we refer to as cost versus benefit analysis. Your cost benefit analysis, in short, we're saying when one needs to implement a project, even if I can remove, remember when you're doing what do you call FM302, learning unit 6, you are calculating, does this product give us a positive NPV? If it's not giving us a positive NPV, it's not worthwhile for one to actually go and implement such a product. So in short, what we're doing here, we're looking at public benefits projects, those that are often run by parastatals or governments. And in your learner guide, there was an example of the World Cup itself. So when you're conducting a cost-benefit analysis, you want to find out, looking at the cost that the company is going to incur, are we going to get more benefits than what we're incurring, isn't it? And your costs are always easier to determine because you know exactly how much a specific item will cost you. But then the benefits, that's where one will end up using what assumptions. But benefits of a project could be the sales that you get out of a project, but you would have incurred cost. So what you need for a product or a project to be viable, you should be having your benefits from the project being more than the cost that you have incurred. That's what you call the cost-benefit analysis. And then it then takes me to calculate the cost and benefit between alternatives. There is, on your e-learn, there is one question that also was asking pertaining, can you see if this product is going to be beneficial for a company to go ahead and implement or not? All you're going to do there is find out what are the sales revenue you're going to make from the project given. What cost are you incurring? Sales, subtract my cost, will give me a profit. If it is a profit, it goes without saying I'll go ahead with such a product. Or a project. If it is a negative, meaning a loss, there won't be any need for one to actually go ahead and do that. Of importance, when I looked at your tutorial letter, it said you are going to be having 15 marks coming from Learning Unit 5. And of importance, especially for this module, more for you guys as marketers, one needs to know how to conduct brand valuation. One needs to know how to conduct brand valuation. So we have got 3 approaches there, well explained in the learner guide, pertaining how one can value brands. The first one is your market approach. Your market approach to brand valuation, you're going to look for a similar transaction coming from a similar market that took place elsewhere, and then it is reasonable for you to use or to make an inference to that one that has been valued elsewhere versus the one that you want to value in hand. Pick up similarities and also pick up differences that you could be picking from those 2 examples, and then you'll be in a position to calculate your brand valuation of the question in hand. There is a very good example in your learner guide. Let me just tell you what page it is, and it's not even difficult to follow on how one would actually conduct market approach to brand valuation. It was a company that was valued in England. It is example 5.7 on page 219. Well explained. You're just going to say, let's look for a reasonably and similar brand that was valued elsewhere. Pick up differences and similarities. Pull those to your calculation, and then you'll be able to get your brand value. So that's the first approach. Second approach to brand valuation, it is your cost approach. On your cost approach, you are going to build, or you are going to do this brand valuation by adding up or building up all costs that a company would have incurred in making that brand. So you're going to do that from scratch, and you can only use new companies to do so because you'll be able to get the source documents on how much they spend on doing what. And there is also an example of cost approach to brand valuation on page 220, example 5.8. It was stipulating exactly how much was incurred in building what? A specific brand. So there is nothing difficult there. You're just going to look at how much was incurred in doing so. And then the last approach or method, it is your income approach. Your income approach, in short, you are going to, is the one that we are going to conduct. I've got a question pertaining to that. Your income approach, in actual fact, it looks more technical because you project sales into the future. After doing the projection, you then bring figures back. Remember, NPV, you will be expecting a specific cash flow in year 1, 2, 3, 4. The value of an asset in finance is the present value of those expected future cash flows. So, but usually in this question now, they won't give you the projected figures. They will give you statements pertaining they are going to increase sales together with the related cost. They are going to increase at 10% annually. So you will be in a position to project your sales into the future, then bring such figures back to today, which is your NPV. You then compare the NPV of the asset or the product that is branded versus the one that is unbranded. The difference of the two will talk directly to the value of a brand. So you have Under your income approach, you also have got the residual income approach and also the incremental income approach. Those they do fall under your income approach. So my thinking is you might see a theory equation around what is your understanding of the approaches to brand valuation first, because there's got 15 marks, and then you go and do the calculation of brand valuation using income approach, which I then want us to do now. So I also paid, I think my birthday, it wasn't a May, it's a May 2017 paper instead. So I will also give you just a moment. In actual fact, you've got the paper in front of you, I suppose. So I want us to conduct, let me also open my, okay, it is. I want us to conduct a brand valuation using income approach. And then it's as simple as it gets now. It used to be somewhat complicated because this unit used to have 20 to 30 marks. This time around, it's only 15 marks. It's going to be as direct as possible. So I would want you to follow and move with me as I do this exercise. So I'm going to read the question shortly. So it's question 5. I went to question 5.2 of the May 2017 instead. I think I made a mistake there. I wanted to say May 2017. So I'll read question 5.2. It says, green grass, the garden equipment. By the way, this question is completely different from the green grass we just done on question 4. They just use the same name. Please don't mix up and take figures from question 4 and bring them to question 5. We're going to use what we have here. Green grass, the garden equipment manufacturer, is interested in buying the Lush Lawns brand from a competitor. So we've got a competitor called Lush Lawns and we are green grass. We want to buy Lush Lawns. But then me and you know, as we are buying existing customers, existing companies or projects, they would have already created a reputation in the market, which would then give them their brand, the brand name itself. So we want to go and conduct the brand name, the brand value for the Lush Lawns that we are interested in buying. I'll read on the question. It says, the information made available to Greengrass on the Lush Lawns brand is as follows. So the information that I'm having there is a short table there of an income statement, an extract. It is of Lush Lawns. Current information for Lush Lawns. And the question stipulated current information for Lush Lawns. And the examiner didn't even want to have people make mistakes pertaining which one is my current year, which is year 0. He went on to say current year in brackets, it says year 0. I'm going to look at the format that the examiner suggested, and then I'll come talk around this. So let me just quickly talk around how this flows. Sales less cost of sales will give you gross profit. Or it could be, if we are selling a service, it could be a fee, annual fees minus variable cost will give me contribution margin, which is basically sales less cost of sales gives you gross profit. Just that this is a product. If it's a service, it would have been service fees, subtract variable cost, will then give us contribution margin. It is the terms, the meaning is exactly the same. Sales less cost of sales, 58 million subtract the 34,800 was going to give us a gross profit currently in year 0, which was going to give us 23,200,000. They gave you marketing expenses, other operating expenses of 1.5 and 2.5 respectively. You subtract those two from your gross profit, you will get yourself your profit before tax. And then you subtract your tax at 28%, you get your net profit. So that's what they've given you. And then, let's say in the exam, for some reason, they've chose not to give you a format. Whenever you're doing brand valuation, you just go and follow the format that would have been given on the question itself, and then pay attention to a few additions that they might bring there. I'll then read on the question. It says, additional information, Greengrass has a weighted average cost of capital, which is WACC of 12%. The company is subject to a tax rate of 28%. The question will always make a reference to WACC because we are going to use the WACC when we're going to calculate what you call terminal value. When you are discounting future expected cash flows back to today, you use a discount rate, and in finance we use our WACC. 28% of course will be the tax rate. And then pay attention to that 28%, that's the corporate tax rate in the country. But what if the examiner is trying to be tricky? Instead of them giving you 28%, they say 29%. So it shouldn't be automatic. Just pay attention to what the examiner would have stipulated on that tax rate. While Greengrass may expect to achieve savings with respect to operational and advertising expenses, the company have decided to use the current expenses for valuation purposes. So we're going to use the one that we're having there. And of course, that statement, it was trying to make other points constant. You have done economics, which we refer to as ceteris paribus. We would want to keep specific points constant so that we'll be in a position to analyze this specific one that we want to keep in hand. The company expects all revenue, all cost, and expenses to grow annually by 5%. Pay attention to that statement. So our sales, cost, and all other expenses are going to grow annually by 5%, meaning when you put in 5%, you end up saying times 1,05. The question is not interested in you calculating 5% of the figures given. You are escalating, you are increasing a figure from what is given moving into the future. So your calculation becomes 1,05. How did I arrive at 1.05? Remember the 10%, it means over 100. So the natural status of any figure, it is 100%. So if I'm going to have these increase annually by 5%, it means I'm going to add 5% on top of the 100, which will give me 105%. What does the 10% means? Over 100. So 105 divided by 100 will give me 1.05. It will be the easier way of doing your calculation. Instead of saying what is 5%, then you go and add. In this exam, the examiner wants to examine you on 3 things. Do you know your content? Can you operate under pressure, speed? Can you also maintain accuracy? So those are the 3. So you cannot afford to say 5%, then you go add. Just go and say 1,05 directly. At inception, year 0, meaning now, Greengrass will need to spend 500,000 on training and manufacturing equipment upgrades to accommodate the buying of the lash. Using the income brand valuation approach, calculate the value of the lash loans brand, 18 marks. Round off all calculations to the nearest round. So they've already stipulated that they want figures to be rounded to the nearest round. So they gave you a suggested layout is provided on the next page. I was actually joking around this statement with my evening class FM3. They are trying to be polite in saying suggested. In short, they want you to prepare or to respond to this question using the format that they've given. They gave you year 0, year 1, and year 2. Now, I want to conduct this, and with my experience, I'm thinking if you do more practice before you write the exam, this could be a simple question can be in this exam. Not to say other topics will be difficult, but if you're going to look at them, already given you your format, I know all expenses, costs, and sales are going to increase by 5%. All that I'm going to do is going to do the projection from one year to another by multiplying by 1.05, and then thereafter calculate my terminal value, which looks somewhat technical, but I'll get to it shortly. So if you're calculating your brand valuation using the income approach, they've given you a format. All that one is required to do, like I said. If you look at this format, I'm going to flip back to where the question is. Sales less cost of sales gives you gross profit. They added takeover expenses here, but my marketing expenses, other operating expenses, they remain the same. And the flow going downwards, almost the same. The only two additional lines are going to also be terminal value and also including terminal value. So what I'll then do is, I'll bring my sales. Remember, we need to do this from year 0, then we do 1, 2. So I'll bring my sales figure for year 0 exactly as given, 58 million. I'll bring the cost of sales for year 0 exactly as given, as 34,800. I will also bring gross profit exactly as given. Marketing expenses, other operating expenses, I will bring those exactly as they are given, but I won't bring profit before tax going downwards, because if you look at the format, they have given you an additional expense which they are referring to as takeover expenses. So I will have my sales, 58 million, subtract my cost of sales, which were 34,800,000. I'll have my gross profit being 23,200,000. And this calculation I'm talking around should fall under year 0, which is current. I haven't increased anything. I'm just taking figures as given under current 0 and put them on my calculation. So I've got up until gross profit. They have stipulated that we have got takeover expenses. Which expenses are they referring to? It is this 500,000 here that says, at inception, which is year 0, even if the examiner didn't stipulate that in year 0, at inception we are referring to at the beginning. Now, Greengrass will need to spend 500,000 on training and manufacturing equipment upgrades, so as to accommodate this acquisition. So I'll then know on my format, over and above bringing my figures up until gross profit, I'll need to bring my takeover expenses in brackets because it's an expense, 500,000. So I've got 500,000 under my takeover expenses. My marketing expenses, I'll bring them back exactly as they were given because it was year 0, 1.5. I'll do the same on my other operating expenses. They were 2.5 million. So I'm having now 3 expenses instead of the 2 that we had. The reason being, we needed to incur takeover expenses so as to do upgrades and also conduct training so as to induct the employees that will be buying, the employees of large loans when you're going to do this acquisition. So now what am I having now is I'm having the 23,200,000 under year 0, which was already given. From the question, I was going to put it there exactly as I just said. Subtract the 500,000 of takeover cost, of takeover expenses, minus my 1.5 million, exactly as given on the question of marketing expenses, minus the 2.5 million of other operating expenses. Let me see my zeros here. That was going to give you a profit before tax of 18,700,000. So you're going to have your profit before tax, 18,700,000. I'll then go and tax. They told us that tax rate is at 28%. So I'll say tax at 28%. What is 28% of 18,700,000? This is now where you would actually find out the amount representing 28%. So I'll say my 18,700,000 multiplied by 18%, which is 0.18. This is where I'll then move on to the 0.18. It was going to give you your tax rate being 5,236,000. 5,326, 5,376, sorry, 5,376,000 is your tax. And then you go down as well to your net profit. All I'll then do is now to say my profit before tax, subtract my net profit. I should be able to get myself my terminal value. Am I supposed to calculate terminal value in year 0? No. So I won't bring in terminal value there. In actual fact, I'm picking an error here for year 0 for your tax. Your tax rate. Remember, we say 18,700,000, 1, 2, 3, multiplied by 0.28. Oh no, it was me. It is 5,236,000. 5,236,000. I will then say my profit before tax, which was 18,700,000, minus my tax amount of 5,236,000. I should be able to get my net profit of 13,464,000. So I would have said 18,700,000, 1, 2, 3, minus my 5,236,000, 1, 2, 3. I've got 13,464,000 as my net profit in year 1. I want to talk around year 2 and year 3 up until net profit, and then I'll go down the last 2 elements. So now you've got your net profit for year 0. We now need to move on to year 1. On your year 1, I'll come back to this statement here. That said, the company expects all revenue, cost, and expenses to grow annually by 5%. So it goes without saying the figures that I'm having in year 0, I'm going to escalate them at 1.05. I'm going to multiply by 1.05. But mind you, you're not supposed to be escalating your takeover expenses because they were incurred at inception, meaning it was a once-off expense. So I'll then move on to when I'm calculating year 1, my sales. I know my sales for year 2000 and year 0. They were 58 million. So I'll say 58 million multiplied by 1.05. I'll put my sales revenue for year 0. Instead of me removing this figure from the calculator, remember you need to manage time. I can even also escalate for year 2. So I've got my 60,900,000 as my sales revenue for year 1. I can also then go and finish off that line times 1.05. I'm going to get myself a sales figure for year 2 as 63,945,000. So I've done with that line of sales. I'll then move on to my cost of sales. Our cost of sales, there were 34,800. 1, 2, 3. Remember they said all revenue, costs and expenses. I'm also going to increase this at 5% times 1.05. It was going to give you your cost of sales for year 1 being 36,540,000. I'll also escalate times 1.05. It will give you 38,367,000. So I've done the line of sales and cost of sales. I'll then go and do what? The subtraction. Now, going downwards. So I'll go to my year 1. My sales for year 1, there were 60,900,000. 1, 2, 3. Minus the 36,540,000, which was your cost of sales. Keep in mind your zeros. 36,540,000. It was going to give you 24,360,000 as your gross profit. I'll then also move on to year 2. Do exactly the same. 63,945,000. 1, 2, 3. Minus my 38 million, which was your cost of sales, 367,000. That will give you 25,000. So the 25,578,000 is my gross profit for year 2. From then on, I'll follow my structure here. I have takeover expenses. They are not going to be applying in year 1 and year 2. Why? They were a once-off expense incurred at inception. So I won't be having takeover expenses for year 1 and year 2. I can just put my dashes, dash, dash. There's nothing there. My marketing expenses, I'll go and escalate them. They were 1.5 million in year 0 times 1.05 to give me 1,575,000 for year 1. I'll also escalate them also at 1.05 times 1.05 for year 2. It will give you 1,654,750. Those are your marketing expenses. I'll move on to other operating expenses. There were 2.5 million in year 0. 2.5 million times 1.05, it will give you 2,625,000 for year 1. Times 1.05 to give me 2,756,250 for year 2. So now for year 1 and year 2, the expenses that I'm only now having are back to marketing expenses and other operating expenses. Because takeover, we left it at year 1, at year 0, I meant to say. I'll then go and do my subtraction to get my gross profit. So my gross profit, so to get my profit before tax. My gross profit for year 2, there were 24,860,000 minus those two expenses, marketing expenses and other operating expenses, 1,575,000. 1, 2, 3 minus 2,625,000. 1, 2, 3. I'll get myself my profit before tax of 20,160,000. 20,160,000 for year 2. I'll do the same for year 3. My gross profit for year 3 were 25,578,000 minus, you see my zeros there, that's fine, minus my 1,653,750 towards marketing expenses. Also subtract 2,756,250 for my other operating activities. I've got my profit before tax of 21,168,000 for year 2. Those were my profit before tax. I'll then go and tax. So let's tax profit before tax for year 1. I would say 20,160,123 multiplied by 0.28. It will give me 5,644,800. 5,644,800. Whilst you still have this figure on the screen of your calculator, just then say subtract the 20. Remember, we need to get net profit. I've already calculated my tax, so I'll then say minus the 20,160,123. Yes, my answer is going to be negative because I didn't want to retype this. You need to save time. It's going to be 14,515,200 to be your net profit for year 1. I'll then go to year 2. My year 2, my profit before tax, there were 21,168,000. I'll say multiply by 0.28. It will give me 5,927,040 rand. I will then say minus, whilst I still have that solution in my calculator, 21,168,123. I'm trying to save time, and then yes, it will come as a negative, but I know it's positive because I would have done the typing from scratch. It will give you 15,240,960 as your net profit for year 2. Now I've got this net profit. Year 0, my net profit, we say, is 13,464,000. Year 1, I have 14,515,200. And then year 2, I have the 15,240,960. Then the following line, just underneath my net profit, it is the terminal value. Terminal value is only going to affect your last year of your projection. In this regard, my last year, it is my year 2. It is going to be my year 2. So my terminal value for year 1 and year 2, I'm not going to be having anything there. I'll leave it out completely because terminal value will only affect the very last year. So I'll leave year 0 and year 1 on terminal value exactly as that. So what I'll then do is, when I've left them out, so I can just put dash on my terminal value, and then my concern or my interest is to go to calculation of terminal value in the last year. of my projection, which is year 2. So your terminal value concept, it is derived from the constant growth model, Gordon constant growth model, which we covered when you were doing FM2. Remember, when you're doing cost of capital, it's either the company is paying dividends, you use dividend valuation if the dividends are not growing. But the minute the dividends are growing, you use the dividend growth model. So the formula of calculating terminal value, which they won't give you in the exam, you need to know it. It is equal to, I'm going to type it on the screen now. So my TV as terminal value is equal to your last cash flow of your projection. Like in this case, I'm referring to year 2. So what cash flow am I referring to? The net profit of year 2. So I would say cash flow 2. And to be specific, the net cash flow I'm referring to here, it is your net profit. It is your net profit increasing. So you're going to multiply the last cash flow, which in this case is your net profit for year 2. Why am I calling it last? Is because I'm projecting up until year 2. I will then go and grow it at 1 plus G. So that's your formula, 1 plus G. Where my G is my growth rate. Which growth rate are we referring to? We are referring to the 5%. The question says revenue, cost, and expenses are going to be increasing at 5% per year. They didn't tell us up until when. So the figure that you want to calculate here, terminal value, it is the value of net profits you are going to expect from year 2 onwards. But we don't know how far is onwards. Hence we call it terminal value. It is up until it's indefinitely. So my numerator is cash flow. So there is my numerator there. My terminal value, my numerator is cash flow 2 under this circumstance, which is my last cash flow, and I'm referring to the net profit. Open bracket, 1 plus G. Where my G in this regard, it is my growth rate, which is the 5% we're increasing sales revenue, cost, and other expenses at. I'll then type in my denominator now. So that is the numerator. My denominator now, it will be your work, subtract your G. Your work, subtract your G. So you might want to jot this formula down. They won't give you this under the formula sheet. They'll only give you PED on the formula sheet and the one of profit maximization and maybe sales trend if you like. So my terminal value is equal to my last cash flow. In this regard, I'm referring to net profit of year 2. So I would want you to move with me on that. So my net cash flow of year 2 multiplied by 1 plus G divided by my work, subtract G. My G is 5%, which is growth rate. So what I'll then do when I'm working out this, I'll start with that last bracket of 1 plus G. So I know what my G is 5%. You express your 5% as a decimal, which is 0.05. Which is 0.05. So I've got my growth on my numerator being 0.05 plus the 1. I'm working out the last small bracket on my numerator. I've got 1.05. I'll then go and multiply it by my last cash flow, which is my net profit of year 2. So my last cash flow, which is my net profit of year 2, it was 15,250,960 rands. So I'll then go and do the multiplication. I'll say 1.05 times 15,240,960. It will give me my numerator. It's going to give me, on my calculator I'm having, let's see, 1.05 1, 2. I'm having 16 million and 3,000. 16 million and 3,000. Right at the end, I also put 8 cents. Then I'll say divide by. Open a bracket. What's my work? It is, I'll go back to the question shortly so we can fetch out our work. Work is 12%. I'll express my work as a decimal, 0.12 minus. My growth rate is 5%, 0.05. I'll close the bracket. I'll then get myself my terminal value, which is 228,614,400. So we end up calculating this terminal value as TV being equal to my last cash flow. I'm just going to type this. It was 15,240,960. Open bracket 1 plus. My G was 0.05. Close bracket. All over divide by. I said my work 0.12 minus my 0.05, which then gave me 228,214,400. That's how you calculate your terminal value. So I'll then put in line with the terminal value on my formula. I'm going to put the terminal value that I've just calculated, which is 228,614,400 rands. I'll then move on to the very last line of our format. The very last line of the format says including terminal value. When you then move on to including terminal value, in short, we are saying net profit plus terminal value should give you a net profit including terminal value. So in this regard, for my year 0, my net profit was 13,464,000. Remember, we didn't have terminal value in year 0, so there is nothing. So it's 13,464 plus nothing will still give me my including terminal value being 13,464. So that one will drop exactly as is because we didn't have terminal value. The same will go for your year 1. The 14,515,200 plus nothing will still give me the 14,515,200. But then when you move on to year 2 now, you would say, what was our net profit for year 2? 15,240,960 plus your terminal value of 228,614,960. It will then give you your including terminal value for year 2 being 243,855,360. That's right, Marcel. Your terminal value will always affect the very last year of your projection. So when they asked me to do this up until year 0, 1, 2, 3, I would end up calculating my terminal value for year 3. In this regard, it was only up until year 2. That's what terminal value is. You bring it in the last year of a projection. And you use the net profit or the cash flow for that very last year, which was the 15 million that we used in year 2. So that's right. Your terminal value will always come in the very last year. Hence we call it terminal value to say immediately, great stuff. Now we have got our including terminal values. My year 0 was 13,464. Year 1, 14,515,200. Year 2, 243,000. So 243,855,360 rands. So what we then do is, you then go and show your calculation of NPV, isn't it? Remember how we calculate NPV. Go to your financial calculators. We then need to calculate NPV. The value of our NPV becomes the value of our brand. In this regard, it was for Lash Lots. So on your financial calculators, Remember, before any calculation, you always say second function cancel. Your calculator should be at 1 payment per year. If it's not at 1 payment per year, you take it back to 1 payment per year by saying 1 second function PMT. So you take it back to 1 payment per year by saying 1 second function PMT. Now that your calculator is on 1 payment per year, move with me on this calculation. You will then say, my CF0, by the way, you also need to show this calculation of your NPV. So I'll say cash flow 0, CF0. It is, I'll say 13,464,123. Please don't make a mistake because this is a cash flow in year 0, it's always negative. No, it can also be positive. Like in this case, it is positive. Unless had we incurred a lot of takeover expenses, remember we had only 500,000. If there were way too many, we would have actually got what? An NP, including terminal value being negative. In this regard, it's positive. So I'll bring it exactly as is. 13,464,000. I'll say CFJ. Your CFJ, it will then tell you cash flow 0, it disappears, comes back again. Your CFJ button, it is your button number 3 on your third draw. I'll then move on to my second cash flow, which in this regard, cash flow 1. It is 14 million. I'm taking the including terminal value figures. 14,515,200 CFJ. To say cash flow 1, it goes away and comes back. I'll then put my cash flow 2, which is 243,855,360 CFJ to tell me cash flow 2 goes away as it comes back. What then do you put? You put your weighted average cost of capital as your I. My weighted average cost of capital was 12%. I'll say 12% I. What are we calculating? Second function NPV. Second function is that orange button with an arrow facing downwards. Your NPV is button number 4 on your second row. It will then give you your NPV being 220,800 no, it's millions. 220 million. That will give you 220,824,000 as your NPV. 220,824,000 is your NPV. That is the value of your brand for this company called Lush Loans. So when it comes to decision making now, you then say, how much are we supposed to spend? If that is the value, if they're asking you anything less than that, good for you because you're buying a strong brand. But if it becomes less than that, good for you. But if it becomes way too more, you then negotiate to say, guys, the value of your brand over and above your assets are sitting at 220 million instead of the 500 million that you want me to pay for. So that's basically how you conduct your brand valuation. So since I saw your learner guide, not your learner guide, tutorial letter, it mentioned 15 marks coming from this unit. You need to practice this question to come in simple, exactly that. Any questions, guys, on this calculation we just conducted now? And then I'll just do a rundown on unit 1, 2, and 3, and then that will be that. Any questions? So the content that we just covered now will help you out to respond to question 4 with 40 marks on the calculation. That was my content. Then the theory, you can always have a look. And also learning unit 5. Oh, great stuff, Akani, together with Marcel is typing. Let me see if it's a question. And then we'll then do a rundown of learning unit 1, 2, and 3. Oh, great stuff, Marcel. See, Tudi and Zama typing. Oh, great stuff. No problem. As long as you follow. Great. So that is your learning unit 4 and learning unit 5. So we're looking at 15 plus the 40, which is 55. But don't forget, There are also theory questions. Hence, I said, if you look at my few pointers, I wanted you guys to also go through all the content, and then you'll be able to respond to your theory questions. That said, I'll then do a quick rundown on Learn Unit 1, 2, and 3, just to remind you of what we covered when we were preparing you guys for the assignment, on the assignment online workshop. Shareholders' wealth. You need to know what is it that we refer to as shareholders' value or shareholders' wealth. It is the value associated to any shareholder through receipt of dividends and also indicated by the market price. So the market price is the one that is talking directly to your capital gain, and then receipt of dividend. So if you remember well, shareholders' wealth is indicated only on those 2 points. Are you receiving dividends, and is your share price increasing, which you will be able to gain capital gain? So you need to know how to do that shareholders return calculation. The one that says RS in your learner guide. RS is equal to P1 subtract P0 plus D1 over P0 times 100. How to calculate the value of the shareholders return. So that's basically what we refer. Well, let me show you the cell. That is in your learner guide. That is on page 22 and 23. There is an example there, example 1.1 of Sinclair buying shares. You should go through that question as well. Page 22 and 23. Great. Then your free cash flow valuation model, your balance scorecard, and your customer value added. You see, like I said, you need to revise your assignment, and there are solutions, or rather the guidelines for your assignment. There was a question in the assignment that says, what is it that we refer to as shareholders' wealth or value? How do marketers influence the shareholders' value? You will respond to that by bringing these 3 concepts. Your free cash flow valuation models. When marketing activities are done efficiently and effectively through your advertising and promotion, we'll be expecting market share price to go up. Once market share price has gone up, surely will also be in a percent to have your sales revenue going up. So you end up bringing the explanation using these arrows on page 29 of your learner guide, where you then say, once our advertising and promotional activities are done spot on by marketers, we'll be able to say have our sales revenue going up. Once your sales revenue is going up, you're going to have also your free cash flow increasing. The minute your free cash flow increases, the market price of the share would actually go up. Whenever your share price has gone up, that's where you're going to get the connotation of capital gain. I bought a share at 10 Rand, is now selling at 15 because the market price of the share has gone up. The 5 Rand becomes my capital gain, which is an important component, the definition of what we refer to as shareholders' wealth. So by so doing, I would have maximized shareholders' value. So you need to know basically how to link your free cash flow model. What is it that marketers do in maximizing shareholders' value? Balance scorecard, it has got 4 perspectives. Your learning and growth, internal business processes, customer perspective, and then finally your financial one. An innovative product which gives a company a competitive edge is brought by marketers. If it's being supported very well internally, meaning if there no problem, so it's fine. If it's being supported internally very well by our internal processes, so you're having a good product, giving us a cutting edge versus our competitors, well supported internally, it's going to influence or affect the image that customers have. So once customers have got a positive image influenced by those 2 stages, one will be in a percent to get rewarded financially against the financial perspective. When you have got those customers with positive image about the product or the brand, you are always going to end with loyal customers. With loyal customers, even during hard times, the fact that they are loyal they will continue buying. So we are already guaranteed of stable sales. And they can also inform colleagues and friends and associates if they are companies, so that they'll be able to do business with one. We end up gaining more new customers. We'll also be able to increase our sales. Once sales have gone up, also be able to have your free cash flow going up, like the explanation I just gave on page 29 on the free cash flow valuation model. Your customer value added, CVA, it is marketers who manages the perceived value that customers have on a product by promoting a product. You know what they do? They do a product bundling. Put two products together and then sell it cheaper, because if you bought them separately, it was going to be expensive. When they are doing that, they want you to try out this product so that when they split the products, you're already loyal to the product because they're so good, you're still going to buy. When you're buying them separately, it goes without saying the company will end up making more sales than when they were bundling. But they needed to use a strategy to be able to increase that perceived value. So when perceived value is increased, one will actually going to also have your sales revenue going up, which will then result in the very same flow I'm having on page 29. When sales revenue has gone up, we expect free cash flows to go up as well. The market price of a share will go. By so doing, one is maximize shareholders' wealth. So on learning unit 1, you need to know the theory around these 4 important concepts before you get in the exam. And then learning unit 2, your tutorial letter said, let me see, it should be very few marks there. Learning unit 2, it is going to be 10 marks. Your learning 2 is going to be 10 marks, meaning the only calculation that might come there. So don't concern yourself with how we did the calculation of the assignment. Remember question 2.3 up until question 2.9. That was extensively examined in the assignment. That won't be in the exam. But of concern, maybe a calculation, if you look at 10 marks, it could be your trend analysis. Calculate a trend analysis. How do you do that? You say current value minus previous value over previous value times 100. Let me show you where you've got this formula of the trend analysis in your learner guide. Because of the marker location, my thinking is it can only be a trend analysis. It's on page 78. Page 78, the trend analysis calculation, page 78, is calculated by saying current value minus previous value over previous value times 100. So that could be a calculation that might come on learning unit 2 because of marker location. Not those sensitivity analysis questions on the calculation. The theory they can ask, but not the actual calculation. Together with the scenario analysis, no. So you need to know how to do that calculation of trend. I've just indicated this page 78, the formula. And then simple linear regression. Y is equal to A plus your BX. On that simple linear regression, it could be just a matter of interpretation to say my Y are my sales revenue. There is also a very good interpretation pertaining that. Still on learning unit 2, they wouldn't ask you to do the actual linear regression, calculate A and B. No, they'll give you those on this unit. It is on page 82. Page 82, there was a physical calculation of your gradient of your A and so forth. Of concern as you prepare for the exam, no need for you to actually go do the physical calculation. Of important is the interpretation, which is then on page 85. So your A is your y-intercept, meaning even if we don't advertise, so if Y are my sales revenue, X are my marketing expenditure. So it goes without saying, if my X is 0, when I've got B and X, I'll end up having a 0. So if we don't advertise, there could be this specific sales revenue we can still make without advertising, which is basically your A. Your B interpretation, since it is your gradient, You would have said your change in prices over your change in what? In quantity demanded. Change in prices over change in quantity. Your B talks directly to how much money are we making per each R1 we have spent towards advertising. Let's say you got your B being 0.3, meaning 30 cents. It means per each R1 we have invested towards marketing activities or advertising, one will be able to make an increase in sales of 30 cents. Per each R1 incurred towards marketing activities, one will be in a position to derive 30 cents as a sale, induced by the R1 that would have been put towards marketing activities. You also need to know how to differentiate quantitative information from qualitative information together with your 4 dimensions. Remember your 4 dimensions of quantitative information: your value, volatility, relevance, and timing. So you need to know those in case they give you a scenario like what they did in the assignment. But the thinking could be, what are the 4 quantitative dimensions to forecasting? You should be able to know those. And then your gap analysis, it could be an issue of theory. Gap analysis, in short, we want to find out what the company has projected, what it ought to achieve, the best possible situation a company ought to achieve, isn't it? Versus, if the current trend is maintained, are we going to be in a position to arrive at the best possible position we have projected into the future? If not, take corrective measures, because the gap will give you the differences. You take corrective measures. If it's because of new information that has just come to light, you then readjust the forecast. So you need to know the theory pertaining gap analysis. But in short, we're saying the gap analysis is what we ought to achieve projected in the future, that position. The difference of that position with, if the current trend, what we are currently incurring now, gets maintained into the future, we will be in a position to reach the ought position which would have wanted to achieve. So if not, you take corrective measures. So that's basically what we refer to as a gap analysis in learning unit 2. 10 marks. So the calculation could be on trend analysis, and then the interpretation of regression analysis, the 4 dimensions of quantitative information, together with the interpretation of gap analysis, just like what I've just said. And then learning unit 3, the tutorial letter says 20 marks on learning unit 3. On your learning unit 3, you need to know what is it that we refer to as price elasticity of demand, PED, together with the calculation. So when you're calculating, or rather the concept of price elasticity of demand, PED, we want to find out when prices are increasing, what will be the response to quantity demanded. And we always have a negative relationship between an increase in price and also quantity demanded. But the magnitude of the responsiveness of quantity whenever prices are increasing, that is what is of importance. So we already know there is a negative relationship between quantity demanded and increase in prices. But then the magnitude. So by magnitude now I'm referring to when you do the calculation now. PED, your formula of calculating PED, and a very good example on learning unit 3, it is on page. The formula of PED in your learner guide, page 148. Page 148. It is percentage change in quantity demanded over percentage change in prices. So you need to know how to calculate percentage change in quantity demanded. You just say quantity demanded currently minus the proposed or the changed quantity demanded, the one that you're going to be having, over the original. So it's current minus the new over the current multiplied by 100. Get your percentage change in quantity demanded. You also do exactly the same on your percentage change in prices. My current price minus the new that we end up having if we move to the proposed change, overlay the current times 100. Get yourself a percentage change in prices. Put the percentage changes of both, the quantity as your numerator and the denominator, this being your percentage change in prices. When you divide, don't bring the percentage on your answer, and also don't bring the negative on the answer, because the negative will come as a result of the interpretation that there's a negative relationship between quantity demanded and increase in prices. So it should be an absolute figure, 1.05, 0.03, isn't it? You then go and interpret your PED using the interpretation guide that you have just underneath that formula there on page 148. If your PED is greater than 0 but less than 1, it means such a product has got inelastic demand. What does that mean? A huge change in prices resulted in a less than proportionate change in quantity demanded. And if it's more than 1, like indicated in the learner guide, it goes without saying such a product has got an elastic demand, meaning a small change in prices will result in a more than proportionate change in quantity demanded. So that's basically your calculation of PED together with its interpretation. And then lastly, or maybe second from last on this, then unit 3, it will be calculation of profit maximization. Profit maximization, and there's a very good example that is well explained, example 3.2, which is on page 151. Example 3.2 on page 151. So what we are talking around on that profit maximization, we want to find out at what price, what is the best price, the optimum price should we price our product at so that we'll be able to maximize profits. So do that example there of 3.2 in the learner guide. It's well explained. If you even move on to the following page, a lot of wording that is given there that explains that we are trying to achieve an optimum selling price that will help us to maximize profits over a given period in time. And then finally, it will be your price discrimination. Degrees of got 3 price discrimination. First degree price discrimination, it uses the auctioning system. So usually such a question will come where they'll give you 2 columns. Match column 1 to column 2. So your first degree price discrimination, it is your auctioning system, which is right at the end of learning unit 3, auctioning system. Second degree price discrimination, that is when one is trying to reward regular customers versus occasional customers. A typical example is your clicks card. To say when you are oftenly buying, they will give you specific discounts on a specific product because you regularly come and you are using that club card. So that will be your second degree discrimination, because somebody who doesn't have, surely they were going to pay exactly what is being displayed on the shelf. And then your third degree price discrimination, we are talking around giving a special price to a specific category of customers. It could be the elderly, which are your pensioners or students, like what your Virgin Active does. If you are a student and you want to have a gymming club membership, if you provide the student, I'm not sure if there is an age limit to that, they will end up giving you a specific discount because you're a student. Meaning if you're also an elderly person, they'll also provide such. So those are the 3 different discrimination degrees that one needs to know before you get into the exam. They'll give you a column, and also the last one could be the issue of pricing strategies, like your price penetration strategies together with your skimming or premium pricing and your skimming pricing, which are more marketing than financial management, which you guys, I would assume you know better than me. On your price penetration, you are charging a product a low price as it enters the market, with the hope of increasing the product price as it matures, and then you'll be making more money. If it's premium pricing, you just get in the market, try to recoup your money as much as you can in the early days, and then decrease the price as time moves. So that is basically important elements pertaining learning unit 3. And then I will then entertain if there are any questions pertaining what I've just mentioned today. If there are any questions that I can address. If not, I will refer you back to where I started when I gave you a few pointers. I started by saying, ensure that you've covered all the learning outcomes as per your learner guide. Use practice questions from your e-learn. Revision study groups. I can see people have been engaging, those that are living in Johannesburg, together with their contact details there. Get yourself in revision study groups. There are specific things that a colleague might help you to interpret. More words in the vernacular in specific circumstances, which can help, and then you'll be able to translate in English. Revise your assignment, especially question 1, theory stuff. There is a guideline of your assignment already online, how to use a financial calculator, and also pay attention to your tutorial letter. So I'm thinking maybe anytime around 23, 24, 25, one might then choose to have a look at tutorial letter, but up until then, try to go through your content, know what's going on, to then help you out to respond to questions. So would you suggest taking both a financial calculator and sensitivity calculator? That's right, Akani, that's exactly what I'll do. So get in there with 2 of your calculators. Question number 5 on your terminal value, that will be the only question I'll use personally, the financial calculator, because you then need to calculate NPV. So I'll use the financial calculator on question number 5, but any other calculation I'll just use the scientific one because of the issues of rounding figures off. And pay attention to the instructions pertaining rounding figures off as well. You're welcome, Akani. So if there are any questions, guys, I wish you all the best. Let's meet up and bump into in the industry, and let's start working. There is not much time anymore, so we need to go and get ourselves in the groove of studying and passing. You're welcome, Akani. So I wish you guys all the best, unless there are any questions. You're welcome, Carla. You're welcome to Lee. Welcome, guys. I wish you all the best. You need to study, and you cannot claim FM3 and you go and pass. Let's get to those tips that I gave there. You should be all right. You're welcome, guys. I wish you all the best. Tuesday it is, Carla. Welcome, guys. All the best. Cheers.